Gracious God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be pleasing to you. And may they grow in our hearts and minds as only you know they need to grow. Amen. Lately, when I hear myself laugh, I hear echoes of my great Aunt Lot. She had a kind of funny little laugh, kind of a little bit devious, you know. So whenever that one comes out, it's hers. And each year when I clip the lilac bushes, I breathe in a perfume that brings me straight back to being 7 years old with my grandma. And a few weeks ago, when Maddie asked if I'd sing in the women's choir for Music Sunday, memories of my childhood music teacher, Mazar, flooded back because she was a woman who had a profound impact on my young adult years. And then last week, as the bell choir finished the service with a medley that included my father-in-law's favorite hymn, How Great Thou Art, I couldn't hold back the tears of love I have for Bob. A laugh, a smell, an influence, a love. Isn't it powerful how the people that we know and love, they actually have become part of us, even after their physical bodies die? It's as if we're each part of this incredibly complex, intricate web, our lives exquisitely woven together. The web is spun forward and back, outward and inward, over and over again. And I was talking to Denny a little bit after the last service and saying, I wish somehow I could get across this fact that it's not linear, this thing that happens, it's being part of this web, and sometimes you're remembering old things, and sometimes you're imagining new things, and you never know when they're going to pop up because we are so connected together. And the Spirit's web of life and death and life again, it holds us together over time and over place. So a wise friend of mine reminded me that the question of death is perhaps the most foundational question of all civilizations and religions in history. None of us can know in this life what is ahead. And yet, we somehow have this sense that we are part of something much bigger than just ourselves. We somehow have this sense that maybe, just maybe, some piece of our essence will live on after our bodies die. Now, we don't understand this, we don't know for sure, so our curious mind thinks up all kinds of possibilities. Maybe after we die, our soul finds a new body and has a new chance. Maybe our soul rests until the end of time, and then we are brought back to life. Or maybe when we cross over, our soul is united with God's love in some beautiful way that we just can't even imagine. So great philosophers and theologians have been wondering and thinking about this question for millennia, and ordinary everyday people have been wondering about this question for millennia too. So maybe it's not surprising that today, on All Saints' Day, we land in this story that explores this question. We find ourselves in the middle of the drama about a man called Lazarus, his sisters Mary and Martha, and their friend named Jesus. So I admit that on encountering the story of Lazarus' death and miraculous resurrection after 4 days, my first reaction is skepticism. I was remembering that Sandra told me several years ago when Claire was just a little girl, maybe 5 or 6, she went to a vacation Bible school, and she was scared out of her wits because the story that day at Vacation Bible School was this story of Lazarus all wrapped up and in a tomb and then springing back to life, and she was just scared to death about this thing. And I have to say, you look at this story and go, wow, could that really happen? What is up with this story? Sometimes I say to myself, well, maybe this story was written by someone near the end of the 1st century who was just trying to convince everyone that Jesus was God. Of course, that's why this story was written. But this story is found only in John's gospel, not all the other gospels, just this gospel. And when I stopped thinking about this literally, all of a sudden I realized it had so much power and meaning if we could look more deeply and metaphorically at it. So, part of the backstory here, which many of you probably know, is that Mary and Martha had asked Jesus to come to Lazarus while he was dying in hopes that Jesus would keep him alive. But Jesus decided to stay away for 2 days. Now, if your brother was dying and you called Denny or Sandra or me and we didn't come for 2 days, I think you'd be pretty upset. And yet, Jesus waits. And so I wonder if maybe this story points to the necessity of death to teach us, to turn us around, to really make us truly understand the gift that is our every breath, every moment, every relationship. What if, instead of being fearful of death, instead of resisting it, we looked at it and said, yeah, this is going to happen. Yeah, this is going to happen to me and to people I care about. And then after recognizing that, what if we could relax into the reality of death and let it be our teacher in living life? Another fascinating aspect of this story is that Jesus is portrayed as irritated, almost angry, if you will. And then he is overcome with this emotion and weeps. This is the one and the only time in any of the 4 Gospels that Jesus actually breaks down and loses it. He so loved his friends, Lazarus, Mary, Martha. He so loves them. Even though he is about to channel all of the power of God to resurrect Lazarus, here he is, being so human, showing so much emotion. So is it possible that this story points to the power of God to work through humans, as God did with Jesus? And is it possible that this story points to the possibility that God is in such a deep relationship with us, with you, with me, that God feels pain, and God feels joy, and feels doubt, and feels fear? You know, sometimes we think about God as way out there. Here is God feeling. What an incredible possibility for a relationship there. So what if we could accept that God so loves us that God feels our emotions just every moment? And what if we could develop a relationship like Jesus had with God, where we are so close to God that we can receive God's power and go out and be his hands and heart and feet? And then there's the cave. I have never, ever noticed the cave part of this story before. This was a new thing for me that sort of popped up. So Lazarus was in this cave before Jesus came to change things. The cave is this deep, dark, smelly place, closed off with a stone. And I think that's the way the cave times of our lives feel. They feel a little bit like a kind of death. Things as we know them are gone. Relationships we thought would never change have changed. Our bodies are changing and we don't know how to deal with it. The expectations of our family and community are impossible to meet. These cave times of our lives, these cave times are difficult. We literally feel like we're walking around in the dark with no light. We really don't have any sense of direction. We don't have any idea what might be next in our lives. Cave times are scary and messy. So maybe you're in the cave of recent retirement. You find yourself wondering how to move on. Your work is done, but then again, most of your identity was just all wrapped up in your work and your colleagues and all that has been for you. What's next? What's really important in life now? how, in the meantime, do you live in this cave of unknowing? Working with kids, I immediately went to the cave of adolescence. You know, you are not quite a kid anymore. You're not quite an adult anymore. You're really not sure where you fit in. Things in your body are really unpredictable. You're not even sure who you are, so how in the world would you know who your friends should be? That's a scary place. Cave places are not easy, but they happen all throughout life. Whenever we have a transition, right, in life, we can potentially be in one of these cave places. We lose someone important to us, or for me right now, I've become an empty nester. Someone graduates from college and hasn't yet gotten a job or needs to come home to live. Things just are uncertain, a little bit shaky. Now, it's November. I notice most of the leaves are down and the sun is not shining brightly today. And you might be saying, enough with this dim and grim. So I'll remind you that these cave times, there is life before the cave time. There is life after the cave time. But it is a necessary time. Lazarus, for some reason, had to be in that place before this new thing could happen. And that's what it's like, you know, when a baby in a mother's womb, it takes time. It has to happen that way. You think about a good relationship, it takes time. It has to happen that way. And then, all of a sudden, the aha moment, the moment when God, through Jesus, calls to Lazarus, come out. God is calling to the one in the cave, you and me and all of us, come out of the deep, dark, smelly place. Come out. Be all you can be. Be who you are meant to be. Live life completely. Fully. And you know, living, I love that song is just coming back to me, live like you were dying. You know, when we have been in this cave, or are in this cave, we have this new understanding of how precious life is. And then God is calling us to be who we will be, who we need to be. Now, if you just look around at all of you lovely people, all of you wonderful people, there is only one and only you particularly. Your genes, your family, the memories from your childhood, your hopes for the future, your body, your everything, they all come together, all of this. Time, space, all comes together in you. There's only one and only you. And you are the one being called out by God. Come out. Imagine God is calling you. Come out. Now, sometimes I know that we don't understand what we are being called to do. We don't understand what God wants of us. If you're anything like me, I hear things going on in my head, and I'm like, I'm not sure if that's me or if that's God. So we do have to listen. And so I wanted to give an example of a family that has found their particular call at this particular time. I was up in New Hampshire visiting some family, and my brother and sister-in-law have two adopted children, one from Korea and one from China, and they now currently live in South Korea. And so every Sunday, they go to an orphanage, the orphanage where their son John is from. And they spend their afternoon holding and feeding babies. So the orphanage has 43 children and about 3 regular caregivers. So when it's time for the babies to be fed, many of them get just propped up with a towel behind them, and the bottle goes in the baby's mouth. For Eric and Kristen and John and Anna, they felt called because of their particular experience with adoption and with their family and how blessed they feel to now be a family. They decided that they were called to go take care of these babies. And can you imagine if these babies didn't have that touch? Can you imagine how much it means to this couple to be sharing their love in a way that is so meaningful? Can you imagine how little Anna and John, who, could have been any kid in that orphanage, how they now have a shared experience and a shared love with these other babies? So if we listen carefully to our own life and our own experience, I think we will find where we are being called to be our true selves, whether that's individually or as a family or even as a community. So when Jesus said, "Come out," and invited Lazarus to new life, it was something miraculous. And when we hear God call to come out and be most fully ourselves, it is something miraculous. Right here, right now. Let it begin with me, those words from Let There Be Peace. Let it begin with me. You live life in the best way you can. You are the most authentically you can be. This muchness. So if Sarah is going to be Sarah, she's going to be the most Sarah she can be. And if Arlene is going to be Arlene, she's going to be the most Arlene she can be. And if Kay is going to be Kay, she's going to be the most Kay-like she can be. That's what the saints before us did. And that's the gift that we can give to our children and our grandchildren and our community and our friends. So this week, as I was cleaning up the gardens, I noticed that the acorns and the apples have dropped from the trees, and then the dried seeds from my herbs are starting to come out of their little pods, and everything is getting scattered around. Now the trees will go to sleep for the winter. The plants will die, but the seeds are scattered all around. And so maybe the seeds of your life, of your call, maybe those seeds will turn up in someone that you're not even aware of down the road. Maybe someone someday will say, "Oh, that laugh. Oh yeah, that laugh was so-and-so's laugh that became part of me." And maybe your influence on a particular student or friend or young person, you may never know, but they may stand up here 50 years later and say, "That person made a difference in my life." And maybe your particular passion for gardening or a particular flower will lead someone to remember years down the road that smell, that perfume, and relate it to you. And maybe your abiding love for your son or your daughter, your grandchildren, that becomes part of them, and they will pass that on. The seeds are scattered. And you have the power to come out, be yourself, and scatter those seeds. If we are paying attention, if we are truly, truly alive, if we have heard the call to be our true selves, our lives carry tremendous impact. And maybe they're just eternal.